Well, it's been described as the biggest intervention in online privacy. The European Union is introducing data protection regulations that come into force on Friday. Their main purpose is to give users more control over what personal information is on the internet. Among the new rules is the right for EU citizens to see what information companies have about them and to have that information deleted. So, for example, if your high school photos are not in the public interest, then a controller like Google will have to erase them at your request. Well, the biggest change in the new law means that all companies operating in the EU, no matter where they might be based, have to comply with the regulations. If they don't, they can face hefty fines. Well, for more, Paul Bernal joins me now. He's a lecturer in information technology and media law at the University of East Anglia. Thanks so much for speaking to us. First of all, what do you make of these new laws? And I mean, will EU citizens really feel the difference that they have more control over their personal information?
Well, we've known about these regulations for a long time. They've taken about 5 or 6 years to develop, and they were actually agreed 2 years ago, but they finally come into force now. So actually, companies have had a long time to get ready, but many of them don't seem to have used that time. Yes, in some ways, people will feel the difference. They'll feel the difference because they've been receiving hundreds of emails in the last few days saying, please, can we keep sending you emails? Things like mailing lists are being regulated by this. Things where we're required to give our consent are being regulated by this. And this is probably the place that we'll notice the most difference. The place where companies will notice the most difference is in the powers that are granted to potentially fine them. And one of the real aims of this is to allow us to kind of change the balance of power between people and companies like Google and Facebook, because now the authorities have the ability to fine them the sort of amounts that actually make a difference to Google and Facebook, not just a few thousand or a few 100,000, but actually the capability to fine literally billions of euros if they do something particularly bad. And that makes a difference. And that means that the companies will actually start to pay some attention to this. Because most of this law, most of the issues were already in existence in the old data protection law. It's just that now they're given more force, consent is given more emphasis, and so on.
But I mean, tell us more about the companies. Will this actually hurt them, hurt their bottom lines, or hurt them financially in any way?
It depends what they do. If they kind of play hardball and fight against what the regulations say, then yes, they will. And European regulators in other areas like competition law have shown this. I mean, they fined Google over 2 billion euros last year.
Aside from the fines, aside from the fines, by having to notify their users about using their personal information and letting them access and delete the information that companies like Google might have, how will they feel that? How is that going to hurt them?
They will feel that only if we decide to take advantage of it. If hundreds, thousands, millions of people start asking for these things to be done, then they'll feel it. But I think they suspect that most people won't do anything and won't care, so they'll just be able to deal with it that way. Most of them have changed their terms and conditions, and most of them will have told you about that. Now, that meant that they put a bit of legal effort in and a bit of time in, but actually most of us won't read the new conditions any more than we read the old conditions, so it won't really make much difference to us that way.
Indeed, and I mean, it comes down to those emails, mostly down, I should say, to those emails we receive in our inbox that we can easily delete and ignore. And truth be told, I mean, some of us actually do appreciate certain servers keeping in touch with us. And it's not really much of a bother to a number of users. Plus, this only applies to people in the EU.
Yeah, and I think that's really what's the biggest thing. This isn't as much of a big deal as it sounds, because most of us are quite happy with what goes on, and we have spam filters on our email to deal with the really bad stuff and so on. Where it might make a difference is if we see things like the Cambridge Analytica saga, where it was clear that Facebook were both using and allowing others to use huge amounts of our data to do things that actually potentially politically manipulate us. If the authorities use the force they have to try to limit that, to limit the way they can analyze and get more value from our data, then they'll feel the difference. We won't notice that,
Okay.
except that maybe other policies will get a bit better.
Right. Okay. Paul, thanks so much for joining us there from the UK.